click resume recording, and then it's going to show up that I am recording. Hooray, I did it right this time. Wunderbar. Okay, gang, we're going to talk today about whether or not your website is working or not. We're going to talk about how to check, how to see, and then we're going to check it to give you some solutions on actually how to do that. My name is Trygve. I am the Director of Business Development here at BusyWeb. We are a full-service growth marketing agency based in Minneapolis. We help sales and marketing teams entering their growth phase of their company attract, engage, and delight their audiences to close more business. So we bring in leads and sales using inbound marketing, optimized websites, advertising, content, SEO, social media, anything that is internet related, we've got a hand in. And our goal is to bring an entire marketing team to your company for about the price of a new hire and help you generate buzz without getting stung. So if you have some interest in that, or if you want to follow up with me after the fact, I will have my contact information available at the end of the show, but you can also reach me through the BusyWeb offices as well. So I'd love to chat with you if it's helpful, but my goal here today is just to be educational, because there's probably some time in your future, in your past, where I ruined your day. And maybe it wasn't me, but it was probably somebody like me. And so let's see if we can break this down a little. So everything was fine. You had a website, it was fine. And then somebody called who sells websites, said, just a bunch of things are broken. All of this looks terrible. It's causing catastrophic failure. And your response to that is, what? What? Huh? Okay. So chances are good that either happened to you or it happened where somebody called management and told management the same thing. And their management comes to you and says, well, something's wrong. We have to fix it. And you're saying, well, what are you talking about? You have to figure out how. I want to start by breaking down some of that those sales tricks first, because not all, one of the things that, yes, I am in the business of selling people websites, and often people's websites are not nearly as bad as other people will have you to believe. So a lot of times what happens is they use SEO sales tricks. So conceptually, what they do is in SEO is there's this concept of break fix. So when Google changes its algorithm, it changes about every 2 weeks. In SEO parlance, the SEO specialist says the website is broken and needs to be fixed, and here is the list of things to be done. And then sometimes overzealous salespeople will call people and say, oh my gosh, your website is broken. This is terrible. You need to pay us to fix it. Well, sometimes that's true, but oftentimes it's not, because really what the question of the day is, what does broken mean to you? And the answer is really different for everybody. And what exactly does broken mean? How that affects your company, how the choices you've made with your website and your overall web presence, all of these are important conceptual questions that goes into really, when those people call, answering it in a positive way to say, no, you should pound sand. To start with, it's important to level set. So the first thing is, what is the goal of the website? What is the company goal of the website? It is a company asset. It has value. It should do something one way or the other. Is it a cost center where you just put money into it and that's just part of doing business? Or is it a profit center where it's actually making you money and doing positive things? One of the things that is a kick out point for us at BusyWeb is, if you just want a cost center website, you don't really care, you don't need it to do anything, we're really not a good fit for you. But if you want something that'll help you build and grow, then that's a good fit for us. So ultimately, the important thing that I want to say here is that if management hasn't given you a goal, if management hasn't said what we want the website to do and what we want to get out of the website and what we want it to achieve, it's kind of hard to tell you something's not working when you really don't know what working means yet. So as we go through this, I want you to think to yourself, what does a working website mean? Is it something that's just not broken, or is it something that's achieving goals? And if so, what exactly are those goals that we're setting for the website? Really, there's a fundamental difference when it comes to websites. So the difference between good and great. So a lot of people have what I would consider good websites. They've got 5 pages. They talk about what's going on. They have their phone number. They have a contact form, and that's it. That's fine. That's not a bad website by any means. A lot of times people use that as a start before they can really focus on other things, and they haven't really come back to it. That doesn't necessarily make it bad. If it's functioning and it's not, I would argue that if a website is not broken in the sense of actively doing you harm, well, it's probably fine. It's good, but there's an opportunity to be great. And so what I'm going to talk to you about today and my level setting with you as we get started here is, what's the difference between good and great? And how do you really achieve that? So we're going to focus today on how to make great websites. All right, so here's how I'm going to break this down. And by the way, for those of you who are attending in person, if you have questions, if you have comments, please feel free. I am monitoring the Q&A and the chat pane while I'm doing this at the same time. Yes, I'm really that fantastic. I'm just kidding. It's really all on one screen, but I am monitoring this. So if you have questions or concerns or you want me to go back or something, just let me know. So, okay. So here is how we're going to break this down. I'm going to give you 5 best case plans for your website. Then I'm going to show you how your website isn't working and then what you do to solve it. Then we're going to talk about where to get the data to prove out the case. And then finally, how do you move forward, and philosophically, what really do you want to do in order to make something like this work? So I talked about level setting before, and that's where I want to start again. What site working means to me. A site is a growing thing, and it's something where the customer is in charge. The customer gets the information that they want in the way that they want it, where they want it. So what does site working mean to us at BusyWeb? It's a couple of different things. Number one, it tells your customer journey and lets them go through it. So as they come to you, where do they go from there? Where do they go from there? Where do they go from there? And in each part of that journey, it gives the prospect value, and it gives them value not only once, but many times. It's also easy to use and easy to convert. There's a good, clean handoff to the sales department. And then finally, it's a profit center for the business. It's actually tangibly, genuinely making money. So this is what site working means to me. And this is the 5 places in which I'm going to break these down today. First, your customer journey. So the best site really has a 4-part customer journey to it. It tells a story to the prospect. So number 1, you have a problem. Either you've been whatever that problem might be, ultimately your service is going to be the one that's going to solve it. But yes, it's validation that there is a problem that you have, or that it's a problem that you don't know about yet. And secondly, it can be solved. So it's not a complete lost case. It's not completely it's just there's positivity there. Next, we solve problems. That is what we do at our hypothetical business together. We solve problems. We've solved problems like yours in the past. And if you'd like, we'd be happy to talk to you about how to solve your problem. That's it. It's a 4-part simple process for a B2B website, where you have a problem, it can be solved. We solve problems, and we can solve your problem. The mistake that a lot of people make is going too much too soon. So again, your site tells a story to your customer. At this point, They're coming to you because they have a problem. So they don't care about your values yet. They don't care about how long you've been in business yet. They don't care about your culture yet. There will be a time in which they care about that, but then not right now. If the design makes sense to you, but not to them, they're not really going to be interested in working with you, because they've got a whole mess of people right behind you that are going to be more than happy to take their money. And if you're too pushy and not forthcoming enough with information, that's another way in which people tend to make mistakes and treat people like a transaction. So if you've ever gotten to a place where you click on a pricing tab and it says fill out this form and it'll tell you what the price is, well, you haven't earned the right to have my information yet. So the answer is no, you can't have my information. Or just fill out this form and somebody will contact you. I don't want somebody to contact you. I just want somebody to tell me how much it is. So if you're not forthcoming enough with the information, you're treating people as, you're not treating them as a valued guest, you're treating them as a foreigner that you don't know yet. And the younger people at BusyWeb who edit my PowerPoint before I present it wanted me to point out that this is a picture of an 80s band called Foreigner. So, which I guess was funny to me. So hopefully it was funny to you too. So site, what your goal is to solve this problem of this customer journey is to think of your site like an experience and like a traveling through a journey. So your prospects have a goal in coming to you. Ultimately, it's to solve the problem, or it's to be validated that they really have a problem. Great, super, wonderful. Are you doing that? Well, to make matters worse, that your prospects might have different goals, or you might have different styles of prospects, all of which to have different kinds of goals, but ultimately your site has to speak to each one of those people. Think of it this way: if you're in an experience, if you're in an experience and it gets too hard, you get frustrated quickly. So think of the last time you were able to go to a restaurant and it was a fun restaurant and somebody had said good things and said it was really awesome and you should really go. And then you get seated and then nobody talks to you for 40 minutes. At that point, you're just more and more angry, and the recommendation that somebody gave you is slowly evaporating away. And ultimately, and what happens in that scenario is if you're frustrated, you're going to find somebody else to help you. You're going to pull somebody aside and say, hey, can somebody take our drink order? But especially in business, if it's too confusing or too hard, or it doesn't actually answer the question that your prospect is looking for, they're just going to be gone. So what are some ways in which you can determine and check whether or not your prospects are getting what they want out of your website, and really evaluate whether or not you do need to do a site rebuild? There's a number of different things. Number one is bounce rate. How quickly are they leaving your site once they get there? Second is time on site. How much time is somebody spending on your website? And is that something where you can truly be, is it more than, 30 seconds? If it's just 15 to 30 seconds, they're probably just looking for your phone number. But if they're spending a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, then keep giving them the right information. Next is how many people convert to SQL. SQL is a fancy marketing term that means sales qualified lead. So if anybody's thrown up a hand and filled out a form on the website and says, yes, I'm interested, I want to talk further with you, then turns into a sales qualified lead. So the question is, how many did you get? How many did you get last month? How much did you get last quarter? And then is that enough? Next, look at customers gained from the website. So if you can put a number on how many customers you actually got from your website as they went through the entire journey, went through the entire sales process journey, then that's a great metric to tell you whether or not your site is really working or not. Especially when those people call and say, oh man, something's broke and you really got to fix it. No, we're fine. We're getting customers through our website. That's the most important thing. which I think I just said, and I don't know why it didn't pop up on screen. So, okay. So again, if you don't have any of those things, if you don't have any understanding of where those things are, that's fine. That's not a bad thing. It means you have a good site. It's not going to be great, but it's going to be good. That's okay. If you want it to be great, then you should get some statistics and create some measurements and create some level setting about really what you want, and then decide whether or not your website is broke and whether or not it needs to be rebuilt or not. The easiest way to do that, there's a program called Google Analytics. It's free. If you can get somebody to put the code on your website, then you'll be able to track all of these data points that I talked about into a nice, simple report. And then you can make some evaluative decision-making as to what you should do next. All right, so that's the first part of a really great website. The next one is providing value through the customer journey. And for the guys out there, I was asked to point out that this actress plays somebody named Meredith Grey. So just a lot of inside jokes today, gang. I'm sorry. Okay, so the ultimate goal of your business on the whole, it's to make money. And nobody's going to just give you money unless you provide them some sort of value. If you just walk up to somebody and say, hey, can I have $1,000? They're going to say no. You could, in theory, get them to give you that money, but you do that by gaining trust. And you gain trust throughout the process by asking for little things before you get to the one great big thing. So what does that mean? Well, it means that your site is probably just about you. So through that process, you haven't really filled out the little things and asked for the little things. What do I mean by the little things? It's things like click here, things like sign up for this, fill out this form, here's a give and take. If you sign up for my webinar, then I'll give you something and then I'll follow up with you. Something like that, where you're asking for something benign and small, but you're providing value throughout the process. Once somebody puts up their hand and says, yes, I'm ready, I'm interested in hearing some more, okay, great. Then you still have to provide them value throughout the process. So what you want to do is make your website about your customer and your prospect, not about you. So what you want to do here is make sure that, and pay no attention to the words on the screen because that didn't, I had a technical issue that didn't convert correctly. But really what the goal in making it about them is understanding what they want throughout the entire process. And later today, I'm going to show you what a sample journey looks like. And so oftentimes what we find is we work with businesses who are just starting to enter their growth phase is what they see on their website and what their customers see are two different things. And so that's because the higher ups tended to be the first marketers in the business because they were wearing all the hats, which is great. And that's fine. But now it's time to take the next step and really look at really what your customers want and how to give it to them. Okay. So next we're going to focus on ease of use. And we're going to focus on ease of conversion. For those of you who are attending live, I'm going to take a quick break here and say, is there anything that you'd like me to go back to or any questions that I can answer for you while I take a quick drink? Looks like we're good. We'll keep going. So don't worry, this mom GIF will make sense in a little bit. So this is when we're talking about ease of use, what I like to refer to this as the Han Solo problem. So I am, I'm a middle-aged man with credit cards and still have the brain of an overgrown child. And I work from home, which means that I have access to Amazon a lot, or I have access to fun sites a lot. And once I found a great product that I really wanted to buy. It was an ice cube tray that was that when you popped out the ice, it was Han Solo frozen in carbonite from the Return of the Jedi movie. I thought, well, this is great. This is fantastic. I totally want to buy it. And I clicked on the picture on the website, and it took me to the picture on the website. It didn't take me to the cart. It didn't take me through a buying process. It just showed me a picture. So the important thing to keep in mind from this, other than the fact that I probably shouldn't be left alone with credit cards, is that site ease of use is absolutely crucial. How people are using their site and how they're going from point A to point Z is ultimately the goal that you really want to have. If you think about your site as a restaurant, well, you want people to be greeted, you want people to be seated, you want them to be able to have an exchange of goods or services, and then be able to pay and then walk out in a positive way. All of that really follows true with a website as well, but you can't. With the challenge with the website is you can't actually talk to anybody while they're doing it. So what I like to ask people who have an ease of conversion use is, does someone who doesn't know you know how you'd solve their problem by reading your website? I'll say that again. Does somebody who doesn't know you know how you'd solve their problem based exclusively on reading your website? If the answer is yes, then you're okay. And then you've got a good, easy to use website where your prospects are finding the information they want. If not, then it's time to change. And keep in mind as well, your site should have multiple doors to entry into a relationship with your business. Nobody has just one style of prospect or one persona. They usually have several different kinds of personas that they're working with. And all of those are going to come to the exact same place and read the exact same thing, and you're going to want them to have a different relationship. So one of the easiest ways to do that is make sure that you have some actionables. And that's our third mistake, is there's no actionables on your site. So here's the test that I want you to go through after we're done here today, is take a look at your website. And within 5 seconds, if it weren't for you, and you can even time it, do you know what you want a prospect to do? If you're coming into this blind and you're looking at a website, and you can really use this for any website, what exactly do you want that prospect to do? And then again, to somebody who doesn't know you, know how you'd solve their problem. If the answer is no, then chances are good it's time to revisit your website and rebuild. What I tend to do is suggest share your website with your mother and have her take a look at it, whatever condition your mother is in. Well, not all conditions, I guess, but ask your mother to look at it. And if she can't tell what it is, then it's probably something that you really need to look at and change. And it can be a mother figure too. It doesn't literally have to be your mother, but somebody who knows nothing about your business, something who has no stake in what the answer is. You're just using them for truth. What do they see when they look at your website? What are you asking them to do when they look at your website? That's really the bread and butter in telling you whether or not that this is a problem for you or not. How do you fix it? Well, you put on your action thinking cap and you try and build up a lot of small trust builders. Remember, your buyer has a problem and they think they're going to get screwed. So they're coming to you not because they want to buy something. They're coming to you because they want to learn about something. So you have to have information on your website. And then if they want to buy from you, you want to give them the opportunity. So again, think of your website as a restaurant, and you're the bartender and somebody gives you a $50 bill. You always want to say, hey, do you really need change? And most of the time they'll laugh and say, no, yeah, I do. But every once in a while, they'll be ready to go. So you do have to have that buying ability there if you need. So make your actionables redundant. Don't make it the same actionable each time. Make sure that there are multiple versions of it on every single on every page. Eventually what happens is you get to measure what works and what doesn't and what your prospects are most interested in. And then you actually get to improve your site beyond something that just sits there. And then all of a sudden you're really having some fun and you're really cooking with gas. So at this point, halfway through our 5 lists, and I want to ask you: are you Pete in this equation? Is somebody in your organization Pete? If you're not familiar with Pete, Pete played an account manager on a TV show called Mad Men, and Pete thought he was just as good as the creatives, and he thought he was he wanted to tell the creatives what to do and tell the marketing people what to do. So the question I want to ask you is this: so you have great ideas and your customers have great big problems. So the question of the day here is: are your customers' problems that need solving more important, more or less important than your great ideas? What I'm trying to get you to think of is that if you've written your website, is your website effective enough as it could be, and is your customer think it's as effective as you? Don't be Pete. Winners aren't Pete. Pete has his place, and it's in the sales department, which is why we're going to start talking next about what's the best handoff to the sales process. Eventually, somebody who comes through your website is going to eventually start to talk to somebody who works in sales, and he's going to say, "Yoo-hoo, big summer blowout," which is the best character from Frozen, and I will fight you if you tell me otherwise. So that when people are coming in the door, remember, this is the guy people think they're going to talk to. Some cocky guy wearing sunglasses, but he's and they probably have this vision of him wearing a checkered sports coat too. So you have to, as marketers, you have to balance asking enough information to give the salespeople something to go on, but not asking too much. Because if you ask somebody to fill out a small novel in order to get them moving on your website, they're just not going to do it. They're just gonna to move along. So asking too little on your website and asking too little of people, ultimately that's going to cost the company time and lost sales revenue, because those people, your sales guys, aren't going to be able to, and ladies, salespeople, are not going to have the opportunity to really vet whether or not these people who are putting up their hand and saying, "I want more information," whether or not they're real buyers. So how do you find the balance between those two things? It's by going back to those small trust builders. So remember, your buyer has a problem and they think they're going to get screwed when they talk to the salespeople. So they're coming for information. They're coming for information first. And what's really amazing about this GIF is I don't really understand why somebody would balance all those Pringles, but let alone put their dog in sweatpants. But next, think of your website as someplace with a ton of doors. Ultimately, what you want is your prospects to go in, and they're going to go in when they want to go in, and they're going to go in the manner in which they want to go in. But before that, with any door, there's always an opportunity to walk out. So you have to continue to provide as much value as you can in the way in which they want it to be presented. So don't ask for too much. A great start is a reason for a reach out. Hey, can I follow up? Can I share with you? Can I give you something that you can review? Then and their basic contact information. So here's something of value for you. Can you give me your contact information so I can follow up with you? And when I say contact information, name, phone number, email, maybe company name, but not much more than that. So if you built your site right, what should happen at the end of that conversion process is your sales team should have the ability to go in and say, okay, here is Mr. Prospect who's come in and says, I want more information, or I want to schedule a meeting to talk. Now what that person wants, I can go back and have it automatically attached to their CRM record to say, here are the pages they've looked at. Here's how much time they've spent on it. That really gets into advanced stuff, but that's certainly something that if you're interested in, we can spend some time talking about. Okay, our last best practice for building is whether or not your website is a profit center for the business. So here's a couple of questions that I want you to think about. Number one, what was the last lead you got through your site? Was it a good lead? Was it a bad lead? Did it turn into a customer and did it convert? And as you're thinking about that, if you can't come up with one, I would ask you, if you can't come up with one, why not? Your site needs to help grow your business. So if it's not helping grow your business through giving you more new contacts and more people who are interested, it's actually hurting. So the question then, I think, is begged, how can it help? Well, it entirely depends on what your problem is. If you are a B2C company and you're not selling product through your site, chances are good it's not easy enough to use. If you're a B2C company or B2B company, excuse me, and you are trying to get more information from people, maybe you're asking too much, maybe you're asking too little, or maybe your traffic isn't attracting the right people and the best fits for your company as well. All of which are completely valid issues and valid potential issues, concerns. So how do you really figure out if your site isn't making you any money? Well, ask yourself the first question: what exactly does the website do for us? And I know that seems like a basic and kind of silly question, but really ask yourself, what does the website do for us? Does it provide value for the business, or is it just there? And if you can't, while you're answering that question, also think about, what do you want it to do? What could you have it do? And is there a difference between the two? The reason we have Homer the executive greeter here is that there's nothing wrong with a website that just greets people and gives them your phone number. That's okay. But if that's what you want your website to do, then that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you don't know what you want your website to do, it's literally costing you opportunities and it's ultimately costing you money. So how do you get serious? How do you really figure out how to take your website to the next level, and how do you really grow it to something that's really going to matter? Well, number one, lay out your customer journey. Figure out what are the steps that our customers are going to take from not knowing us to putting up a hand and saying, I'm ready to talk to sales. And then figure out, what does the prospect need at each point in that journey and how they need it. Do they need to talk to somebody? Do they need a text message? Do they need a piece of information? Do they need some sort of MacGuffin that that you can give them that'll really make it worthwhile? And then figure out a goal for the site as if it were an employee. So think of your website as a real person. Think of it as a sales and marketing person. With any employee that you hire, there are goals associated with that. Everybody has KPIs, things that they have to do on a regular basis, goals they have to achieve every single year. And if they haven't done it, then you've got a failing employee. But if you can figure out the first 2 points on this slide here, your customer journey and what the prospect needs at each point, then boom, you've got a new site wireframe, because you've laid out everything you need to start building the site that you really want. Now, at this point, you're probably asking yourself, well, I don't see any results. Well, just because you're not seeing results doesn't mean there aren't any. And that's something really critical, is just because you're not capturing something, you're not seeing anything, doesn't mean it's not happening. I am not near my wife right now, more than likely as she's eating lunch, and I haven't seen her eat lunch. So does that mean she didn't eat lunch just because I didn't see it? No. It just means that there are things happening that I am not fully capturing, and there are opportunities that I've lost, which kind of blows my analogy out of the water, because I don't really know how to relate that back to my wife eating lunch. But ultimately, what I'm trying to say here is that not having results doesn't really prove your point that your website can't get you results. So what I'd want you to think about is, over a rolling 12-month period, what has driven the most revenue for your business? Your website and your marketing efforts should at least be in the top 5, and it should be competing with at least a couple of your salespeople. So, okay, great. Now what? Now that we know that these 5 things have to happen and how we can see them, what do we really do? And what do we really go to? Well, I want you to go back to basics. Look at an audience persona. And this is one of the things that we do at BusyWeb for our clients, is lay out really a full page narrative of who we are talking to, what they look like, what is their data, what are their goals, what are their frustrations, what are their motivations. And what you do is you really get a narrative of who you're talking to and what their data is. So you're not talking about everybody at this point. You're just talking to those specific people. What are their hopes? What are their fears? All of this comes from your sales department, because they are the ones who are talking to the people who can convert the most. So bring them into this process and make sure that they're, as you're trying to lay out who's the best person we want everybody to talk to, let's all march to the same direction. Then the question you want to ask yourself is, does your website speak to this person? Spoiler alert, if it doesn't, why on earth not? You should be able to change your website, and you should be able to change your website to talk to your best customer persona and your best customer prospect. And if you can't, again, why on earth not? Every website that we build at BusyWeb, we make sure that we give our clients and we train our clients on how to use it. So they have the opportunity to change their website as their business changes. So if you don't have that, I'd encourage you to talk to your website folks and figure out how to get that so that you can talk to your best right person. Remember though, complexity is the enemy. I talked about what a potential customer journey looks like. This is a pretty standard one of everything that somebody looks from. They might go to your website, they might look at your blog, then go to Google, maybe check out your Twitter page, and then talk to a BDR. Or they might read the blog, see an ad, go to the blog, maybe look at a competitor site, read a review on you, maybe do a chat, maybe look at the website again, and then throw up a hand and say, yeah, I'm ready to go. I want to talk a little bit more. So complexity in your website you can't have that, because the needs of your potential customer bases are going to be all over the place. So make it as easy as possible to get the information that they need in the way in which they need to get it. Ultimately, adaptation is growth. And there are 3 points that it's important to keep in mind, is that most good websites and most good marketing efforts leverage customer data, so that every time somebody's coming back to your website, they're getting more and more personalized. Second, gatekeepers are removed. You're not being held back by any particular person when they have to make an important update. If you have that right now, we should talk afterwards, because there's really no reason for that. And then third is you have to be able to measure it. The great thing about a website and the value proposition with a website is you can put a ton of things into it and you can check and see what's working and what's not. Pulling all this off is kind of difficult though, because ultimately what we're really doing is moving data from one point to the next and through some different silos. And there are a couple of different silos that we're having to deal with in a business. So the sales team has got their own CRM. The IT folks are doing, or the developers doing their website. And then the marketing team might be working on an automation platform. So reporting across all these things is a nightmare. So ultimately, what I'd encourage you to think of is, how do we combine those 3 things into one? So it's really about, as I said, it's really about the flow of data from one point to the next. And because your customer journey is going to be messy, you have to account for everything and have all of that big plate of customer and prospect spaghetti on one plate. It flows when the customer wants, how they want it, and your systems have to be able to adapt. So where real growth happens is where your website, your CRM, and your automation platform all combine together to work together under the umbrella of the marketing team. Okay, so that's everything that I've got for you today. Thank you so much for joining. We went through the 5 different parts of a really successful website and what you can do to fix it. We are going to send you, as part of taking part today, a Introduction to Growth Driven Design ebook that's going to be emailed to you later today, just automatically as a thank you for staying with us throughout the whole thing. Our next webinar is going to be on June 2nd. It's going to be 5 keys of growth-driven design. So this was sort of the origin story for your website. The next part will be, how do we really turn it into a superhero? And that's going to be on June 2nd, and you can register for that at busyweb.com/events. So my name is Trygve. Here's my picture and my contact information. If you'd like the slides, if you'd like the recording after the show, I would love to give it to you. I would love to talk to you if we can help you and see what we can do to help you grow if the time is right. So thanks everybody for joining us. Again, my name is Trygve, and we'll see you next month.